The observation deck of Viridian Apex Academy stretched like a steel crescent against the void, its transparent aluminum hull offering an unobstructed view of the Andromeda Sector's triple-star system. Lena Moss pressed her forehead against the cool surface, watching solar flares dance across the nearest sun's corona, and tried to remember why she'd thought a scholarship to the galaxy's most prestigious institution was a good idea. Behind her, the Commons area buzzed with the particular chaos that came from cramming 2,000 adolescents from 47 species into one floating educational nightmare. A group of Centaurans argued about gravitational physics near the protein dispensers, their crystalline voices creating harmonics that made Lena's teeth ache. 3 Virin enforcers lounged by the observation couches, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the bioluminescent ceiling panels, radiating the kind of casual menace that came from knowing you were apex predators in every room you entered. Kix materialized beside her with a melodic trill that her translation implant rendered as nervous greeting. The little trill's wings fluttered, refracting light into prismatic patterns across the deck plating. You are exhibiting stress pheromones again. Also, you missed advanced xenobiology. Professor Thane asked about you with his concerned face, the one where his eye stalks droop. I was there yesterday, Lena said. That was fundamental xenobiology. Different class, different day. Time continues to progress linearly despite your apparent wishes otherwise. Lena couldn't help smiling. Kix had a way of making existential dread sound like a minor scheduling conflict. Right, linear time. I'll try to remember that revolutionary concept. The trill's wings buzzed faster, their version of laughter. This is why humans confuse everyone. Your species discovered faster-than-light travel, but still cannot master academic calendars. Movement caught Lena's eye. Kedra had risen from her couch, all 2 meters of armored muscle and serrated confidence. The Virin enforcer's compound eyes fixed on Lena with the focus of a targeting computer acquiring a lock. Lena's stomach dropped. Perhaps we should relocate to somewhere with more exits, Kix chirped, their musical tones acquiring sharp edges that the translator struggled to process. Too late, Kedra crossed the Commons in 4 strides, her clawed feet clicking against the deck with metronomic precision. Her entourage followed like remeras tracking a shark. The human, still occupying premium observation space. Curious behavior for a probationary species. Lena straightened, fighting the urge to step back. At 17, she'd already learned that showing fear to predators only made them hungrier. Last I checked, the Commons were open to all students, even the disappointing ones like me. Kedra's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement, or might have been the sound she made before tearing into prey. Humor. How very human. Your people always joke when outmatched. I wonder if you'll find tomorrow's combat simulation equally amusing. The words landed like ice in Lena's chest. Combat sim was mandatory, full contact, and monitored by instructors who had perfected the art of looking elsewhere when things got ugly. The Virin specialized in combat. Humans specialized in dying creatively. I'll bring my best material, Lena said, hating how her voice wavered. Kedra leaned down, her breath hot and reeking of the sulfur-based proteins her species favored. See that you do. I'd hate for the session to end too quickly. She swept away her followers, chittering approval. Lena exhaled slowly, her hands shaking. That was suboptimal social interaction, Kix observed. Really, I thought we bonded. Your sarcasm defense mechanism is showing again. It's all I've got. They stood together at the viewport, watching stars wheel past as the Academy completed another rotation. Lena caught her reflection in the glass. Short, pale, entirely too fragile for a galaxy that measured worth in talons and armor plating. Behind her reflection, high above on the administrative observation deck, a figure watched through the reinforced crystal. Female presenting, human in silhouette, but something about her eyes caught the light wrong, reflecting violet instead of any color evolution should have produced. Lena blinked and the figure was gone. Did you see? The administrator with the strange eyes? Yes, she watches you frequently. I assumed it was standard human monitoring protocol. That's not comforting, Kix. Comfort was not my primary objective. Accuracy was. Lena laughed despite everything, the sound swallowed by the Commons' ambient noise. Tomorrow she'd face Kedra in combat. Tomorrow the instructors would look away. Tomorrow she'd learn exactly how much punishment a human body could absorb, while the galaxy's best and brightest learned their most important lesson. that some people simply mattered less than others. But tonight she had her anxious trill friend, a viewport full of stars, and the stubborn human habit of laughing at things that should make her cry. It would have to be enough. The combat simulation arena occupied the Academy's lower ring, where centrifugal gravity ran heaviest, and students learned that physics didn't care about your feelings. Lena adjusted her breather unit for the third time, watching the nitrogen mix gauges flicker between acceptable and you're going to pass out. The arena's atmosphere catered to VRIN respiratory preferences, which meant humans got to experience the joy of supplemental oxygen while trying not to get pulverized. Kedra stood across the mat, rolling her shoulders in a way that made her exoskeleton plates click like a percussion instrument tuning up for a violent symphony. Her entourage lined the observation gallery, mandibles chattering encouragement that Lena's translator mercifully rendered as generic sports enthusiasm rather than whatever bloodthirsty specifics they were actually broadcasting. Instructor Ven, a centauran whose crystalline body refracted the arena lights into nauseating patterns, activated the simulation parameters with one of his 7 manipulator tendrils. Standard engagement protocols. First incapacitation or submission ends the match. Medical drones on standby begin when the tone sounds. Lena noticed he didn't make eye contact. None of the instructors ever did, not when humans faced species with 3 times their muscle mass and built-in weapons. It was amazing how transparent plating could suddenly require intense examination when a probationary species was about to become a learning experience. The tone sounded. Kedra moved. Lena had exactly enough time to think this is going to hurt before 200 kilos of armored enforcer slammed into her like a malfunctioning cargo shuttle. The impact drove her into the mat hard enough to make her vision strobe. Her breather unit cracked, alarms shrieking as oxygen mix went critical. She rolled, gasping, tasting blood and the arena's nitrogen-heavy air burning her lungs. Kedra followed with methodical precision, not rushing, taking her time. This wasn't about winning, this was about teaching. Lena scrambled backward, her hand slapping the emergency stop panel. Nothing happened. She slapped it again. The panel's indicator light mocked her with steady red. Equipment malfunction, she wheezed. Breathers compromised. Instructor Ven's eye stalk swiveled toward the control board, then away. Simulation parameters are within acceptable ranges. My oxygen. Kedra's clawed foot caught her in the ribs, lifting her off the mat and sending her tumbling across the arena floor. Pain exploded through her chest, white-hot and all-consuming. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except curl around the agony while her vision tunneled. Through the gray haze, she heard Kedra's voice, almost gentle. This is the lesson, human. You don't belong here. Your species doesn't belong here. Every day you remain is an insult to those who earned their place. Another kick, this one to her shoulder. Something crunched. Lena's scream came out as a wheeze, her damaged breather unit unable to pull enough oxygen for proper agony. The medical drones didn't activate. Instructor Ven studied his control panel with the focus of someone reading the most fascinating technical manual ever written. In the gallery, students watched with varying expressions of discomfort, entertainment, or simple indifference. Then Kedra made her mistake. She leaned down, mandibles spread wide, and whispered, "Maybe if you cry properly, I'll let you crawl to medical." Lena's hand, moving on pure spite and oxygen-deprived delirium, grabbed a calibration sensor from the mat's edge and jammed it into the soft joint where Kedra's exoskeleton plates met at her knee. The VRIN shrieked, stumbling back, and Lena used the precious second to lunge for the arena exit. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. The deck rushed up to meet her face with enthusiastic velocity. Her breather unit finally died completely, red lights winking out like stars at the end of the universe. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness claimed her was a figure descending from the administrative observation deck, moving with liquid grace that seemed to bypass several laws of motion. Violet eyes blazed in an otherwise human face, and the temperature in the arena dropped 10 degrees in as many seconds. Lena woke in medical bay 3 hours later, her ribs wrapped in regenerative gel and her lungs burning with the special intensity that came from nearly suffocating while also being kicked repeatedly. Kicks perched on the edge of her recovery pod, wings drooping in distress. You have a fractured rib, pulmonary edema, and what the medical AI describes as catastrophic breather unit failure due to intentional sabotage. Also, you are very stupid. Thanks, Kicks, really feeling the love. Love is biochemical delusion. Facts are eternal. The facts say you nearly died while 3 qualified instructors watched and did nothing. Lena stared at the medical bay's ceiling, watching therapeutic light patterns cycle through colors meant to promote healing. They're not going to do anything. They never do. Incorrect, someone did something. Kix pulled up a holographic display with their wing claws, showing arena footage. There, the moment Lena collapsed, the moment the mysterious administrator descended. Instructor Selen, according to the Academy database, taught advanced stellar cartography. No species designation listed, which was unusual. No planet of origin, which was bizarre. Employment records stretching back 70 years without visible aging, which was impossible. In the footage, Selen moved through the arena like gravity was optional, reaching Lena's unconscious body before the medical drones even activated. Her hands glowed with violet light as she stabilized Lena's breathing, and when she turned toward Instructor Ven, her expression could have flash-frozen a sun. "What happened after?" Lena asked. "She carried you here. She filed 17 formal complaints through channels I did not know existed. She is currently in a meeting with the Academy director that has lasted 2 hours and counting, during which 3 administrative assistants have resigned and 1 attempted to flee the station." Lena tried to laugh and regretted it immediately as her ribs reminded her they were held together by gel and prayers. Sounds like a fun meeting. Humor deflection again. You could have died, Lena. But I didn't, and I got a hit in. You saw that, right? The sensor in her knee joint. Kix's wings fluttered rapidly. Yes, tactically inadvisable but emotionally satisfying. You are a terrible influence on my conflict resolution protocols. I'm a terrible influence on everyone. It's my special human gift. They sat together in companionable silence, watching Lena's vital signs stabilize on the medical displays. Somewhere above them, in administrative offices Lena had never seen, someone was finally making noise about the quiet cruelty that kept the academy running. Someone with violet eyes and impossible grace was forcing the system to acknowledge what it had worked so hard to ignore. Lena didn't know if it would change anything. But for the first time since arriving at Viridian Apex Academy, she felt something other than resignation. It felt dangerous. It felt like hope. The Galactic Heritage Festival transformed Viridian Apex Academy into a carnival of cultural superiority, masquerading as celebration. Every corridor blazed with holographic displays showcasing species achievements. Centauran mathematical proofs that solved problems most civilizations hadn't known existed. Trill harmonic engineering that could reshape matter with pure sound, Virin military campaigns that had brought 17 systems under Concordat control. Lena limped past the exhibits with Kix fluttering anxiously beside her, her ribs still aching despite 2 weeks in regenerative therapy. The human display occupied a corner near the waste reclamation systems, featuring a modest hologram of Earth's first lunar landing, and a plaque explaining how her species had eventually graduated from planetary extinction-level wars to merely regional ones. "Your people's exhibit is depressing," Kix chirped. "We're working with limited material. It's hard to compete with species that were building Dyson spheres while we were still discovering fire. You could showcase your capacity for stubborn survival despite obvious inadequacy. Very inspiring. Thanks, Kix. I'll suggest that for next year's theme." The festival's centerpiece occupied the main atrium, the Virin Concordat's ceremonial display, a massive holographic monument depicting their empire's expansion across 3 sectors. Kedra stood beside it in formal armor, her exoskeleton polished to mirror brightness, accepting congratulations from faculty and students alike. She'd recovered from the knee sensor incident. Lena had recovered consciousness. Everyone agreed this was a fair trade, except the display began glitching during the opening ceremony. Holographic projections stuttered, showing Virin warships firing on civilian stations instead of military targets. Audio feeds played screams instead of triumphant war anthems. The historical narrative that claimed peaceful annexation suddenly included footage of orbital bombardments. The atrium erupted into chaos. Kedra's mandibles spread in fury as she tried to shut down the corrupted display. Faculty rushed to investigate, and in the confusion, someone noticed the access logs. Lena Moss, Terminal 7, 3 hours before ceremony commencement. Security drones escorted her to the disciplinary chamber while students whispered and pointed. Kix tried to follow, but got blocked by a hovering enforcement unit that politely suggested remaining behind would be optimal for their continued enrollment status. The tribunal occupied a semicircular chamber designed to make the accused feel appropriately insignificant. 6 adjudicators representing the Academy's major species sat in elevated positions, their faces ranging from crystalline impassiveness to barely concealed satisfaction. Lena stood alone in the center, surrounded by holographic evidence that someone with her credentials had sabotaged the VRIN display. Chancellor Vorix, a centaur in whose body refracted light into aggressive patterns, activated the primary evidence file. The access logs are definitive. Your biometric signature, your terminal assignment, your recorded keystrokes match the corruption protocols exactly. I didn't do this, Lena said. The evidence suggests otherwise. The evidence was manufactured. Someone copied my credentials, spoofed my biometrics, and timed it perfectly to destroy my credibility right when Instructor Selen started asking uncomfortable questions about Academy policies. Adjudicator Thane, the weary professor who'd witnessed her harassment, shifted uncomfortably. His eye stalks drooped. These are serious allegations. You want to talk about serious allegations? Let's discuss how I nearly died in combat simulation while 3 instructors watched, or how my research samples keep disappearing, or how my dorm access fails at midnight twice weekly, or how this tribunal includes 0 human representation because we're probationary, which apparently means we don't deserve basic due process. Chancellor Vorix's crystalline structure darkened. Your personal grievances do not excuse. My personal grievances are the entire point. You've built a system that tolerates cruelty as character building, and when someone finally calls you on it, you manufacture evidence to remove the problem. Not the bullying, not the systematic harassment, just the human who won't quietly disappear. The chamber went silent. Lena's hands shook, but her voice remained steady, channeling 2 years of swallowed rage into surgical precision. She cited dates, times, witnesses who'd looked away. She named instructors who'd received complaints and filed them in deletion folders. She dismantled the Academy's mythology of meritocracy with the kind of devastating clarity that came from having absolutely nothing left to lose. The tribunal exchanged glances. Chancellor Vorix prepared to pronounce judgment, and then someone stood in the observation gallery. Instructor Selen rose with fluid grace that made the movement seem less like standing and more like reality rearranging itself around her presence. Her violet eyes blazed with bioluminescent intensity that Lena had never seen in any human iris. The temperature dropped. Atmospheric processors struggled to compensate. I invoke authority intervention, Selen said, her voice carrying harmonics that Lena's ears registered but her brain couldn't quite process. Under Galactic Covenant Article 7, Subsection 4, I declare these proceedings suspended pending investigative review. Chancellor Vorix's crystalline body actually cracked, stress fractures spreading across his surface. That protocol hasn't been invoked in 3 centuries. You have no standing. I have absolute standing. I am Luminari, we observe. We record, and when institutions betray their foundational principles, we intervene. The word Luminari sent shock waves through the chamber. Students in the gallery began frantic searches on their data pads. Faculty members went very still with the particular stillness of people realizing they'd been performing for an audience they'd forgotten was watching. Selen's human disguise flickered, revealing something beneath. Light that existed in color's evolution had never designed eyes to perceive. A form that occupied more dimensions than the chamber technically contained. Then the image stabilized, showing merely a woman with impossible eyes and a smile that promised consequences. You have 48 hours to prepare your defense. I suggest you use them wisely. She descended from the gallery, walking past Lena with the faintest nod. Reality seemed to bend slightly around her passage, as if physics was making polite exceptions. Lena stood alone in the chamber while the tribunal scrambled to adjourn, while students erupted into speculation, while the careful machinery of institutional cruelty suddenly realized it had been operating under observation all along. Kix appeared at her elbow, wings vibrating with agitated harmonics. What just happened? I think, Lena said slowly, someone finally forced them to look. Selen's investigation lasted exactly 43 hours and 17 minutes, during which time the Academy's administrative structure collapsed like a neutron star, achieving critical mass. She moved through encrypted files and sealed records with the casual efficiency of someone who could perceive causality as a spatial dimension, reconstructing timelines that administrators had spent years carefully obscuring. Lena watched the fallout from Medical Bay, where she'd been confined for observation after the tribunal. Kicks provided running commentary, their musical narration turning institutional devastation into something resembling a nature documentary about collapsing ecosystems. Chancellor Vorix has resigned. That makes 4 senior administrators today. The Virin Concordat has issued a formal statement expressing deep concern, which in diplomatic language means they are experiencing profound embarrassment and require someone to blame urgently. What about Kedra? Expelled, effective immediately. 17 counts of harassment, 9 counts of assault, 4 counts of evidence fabrication. Her family is attempting damage control, but Selen released her full investigative report to the Galactic Educational Consortium. It's currently the most downloaded document in 3 sectors. Lena tried to feel satisfaction and found only exhaustion. Did the report mention the others, the students who looked away, the instructors? Kix's wings drooped. 12 faculty members placed on administrative leave pending review. Systemic reforms mandated across all academy operations. Human enrollment protections formalized in charter amendments. It's comprehensive, Lena. She burned it all down. The door chimed. Selen entered without waiting for acknowledgement, moving with that liquid grace that suggested she was translating herself from higher dimensions into merely 3 for everyone's convenience. Her violet eyes had dimmed to something almost human, though light still caught them wrong. "You should be resting," she said. "I'm resting horizontally, that counts." Selen's mouth quirked, an expression that looked practiced rather than natural. "Your species has a peculiar relationship with prescribed medical protocols. We're contrary by nature, it's part of our charm." Indeed, Selen pulled up a holographic display with a gesture that made space fold in ways that hurt to observe. "I wanted to show you this before it becomes public record." The display showed footage Lena recognized. The combat simulation, her collapse, Instructor Ven looking deliberately elsewhere. But Selen's version included overlays, temporal markers showing this wasn't an isolated incident. Dozens of similar scenarios played out across multiple timelines, a pattern of calculated cruelty that made Lena's stomach turn. "This is what I showed the Galactic Educational Consortium. Not just what happened to you, but what's been happening for decades. The Academy's culture didn't develop accidentally. It was policy, written in silence and enforced through willful blindness." "Why didn't you intervene earlier?" Lena asked. "If you're Luminari, if you observe everything, why wait until now?" Selen's expression shifted into something ancient and sad. "Because intervention has costs. We don't force change. We wait for moments when change becomes inevitable, when one voice speaking truth makes continuation of lies impossible. You were that moment, Lena. When you stood before the tribunal and refused to be quiet, refused to disappear, you created a break in their narrative they couldn't repair. I just told the truth." "Exactly. And truth spoken with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous force in the universe." Kix chirped nervously from their perch. "Does this mean Lena gets to stay without being systematically destroyed?" "It means the Academy changes or closes. The Consortium has made that clear." Selen gestured, and the hologram shifted to show new protocols, human representatives in tribunal positions, mandatory intervention training for faculty. "You could transfer anywhere now. Full scholarship guaranteed. Every major institution wants the human who brought down Viridian Apex's corrupt administration." Lena considered the offer, watching stars wheel past the Medical Bay's viewport. Running would be easier. Starting fresh somewhere that didn't contain memories of suffocating on nitrogen-rich air while instructors looked away. "I'm staying," she said. Selen's eyebrows rose fractionally. "That's unexpected. Someone needs to make sure the reforms actually stick. Someone needs to be here when the next human student arrives, scared and alone, wondering if they made a terrible mistake. Someone who knows what it's like and can say, 'You belong here, and I'll make sure they remember it.'" Kix's wings fluttered rapidly. "This is very heroic and also very stupid. I approve completely." Lena laughed, feeling something uncurl in her chest that had been locked tight since arriving at the Academy 2 years ago. Not hope exactly. Something harder, more durable. Determination forged in nitrogen atmospheres and broken ribs. "Besides," she added, I promised myself I'd pass advanced xenobiology. I'm not letting Kedra's vendetta rob me of that satisfaction. Selin smiled, genuinely this time, her violet eyes warm. Then I suppose you'll need proper support. The consortium approved my permanent appointment as ethics overseer. I'll be watching. Creepy but reassuring. I contain multitudes. 3 months later, Lena stood in the repurposed combat arena, now the Academy's Interspecies Cooperation Center, teaching self-defense techniques to a mixed class of incoming students. Kix perched on the equipment rack, providing commentary that turned combat instruction into absurdist comedy. And when your opponent has natural armor plating, remember that joints are vulnerable. Also, screaming helps. Humans are very good at screaming. We should embrace our gifts. The students laughed, a centaurine crystalline chuckle mixing with trill harmonic trills, and even a reluctant clicking from a young Virin in the back row. Lena caught Selin watching from the observation deck, her impossible eyes satisfied. The academy hadn't transformed into paradise. Change moved slowly through institutional structures, fought by those who preferred comfortable cruelty to uncomfortable justice. But the fight was visible now, acknowledged rather than hidden. And Lena Moss, probationary human, had learned the most important lesson Viridian Apex Academy never intended to teach. That sometimes the system only changes when someone forces it to look at what it's been pretending not to see, and that being small doesn't mean being powerless. It just means fighting smarter.